Last Wednesday, the Golden State Warriors looked helpless against the Phoenix Suns despite Steph Curry having an all-time 50-point performance. Golden State is in clear turmoil, and despite Steph being on pace for another all-time season, his play is doing little to stop it. Despite Golden State keeping most of their championship-winning core, this team barely looks like a play-in team right now. At the time I write this, Golden State, who is typically a pretty solid road team, has yet to win an away game this season. Klay Thompson looks like an absolute shell of himself, and I'm afraid injuries may have consumed what was left of his prime. His clear lack of athleticism is apparent, and it doesn't look like it is coming back, although shout out to Klay with that 41 piece. Draymond no longer looks like the defensive player of the year he once was, and offensively not much has changed with him this season. And apparently not enough baddies have been going to the Warriors games, as Jordan Poole, who has only started in 3 games this season, is not looking like the player he was last year. While I think it's too early to say it, James Wiseman being sent down to the G League is not a good look, and it is definitely giving off a bust warning. Meanwhile, the rest of the Warriors' young core hasn't developed in the way that we thought they would, and of course we can't forget Andrew Wiggins, who is still their second or third best player, but even he doesn't look like how he did last season, especially on the defensive end of things. Practically everybody not named Steph Curry has looked worse this season, and while we're still early in the year, alarm bells are slowly starting to sound for the Warrior faithful. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, another large market team and the Brooklyn Nets are starting to crumble. Kevin Durant's play has been great, but his comments don't really inspire his teammates. Kyrie has been as controversial as ever, but his play hasn't looked that bad when he's been on the court. Ben Simmons, in what I have called his last chance, is not looking like the guy that we thought he was going to develop into. The Nets are already onto their second coach of the season, and after giving up 153 points to the Sacramento Kings, the calls of blowing it up are growing even louder. Brooklyn's future is also in danger, as not only is their current core aging, but they don't have any prospects coming off the bench, and nor do they possess their 24 or 25 first-round draft picks. The Warriors have the young talent, but their team is currently not good enough to win it all. The Nets have some of the best star talent in the league, but lack a roster to truly support it, and they lack a future to fall back on. With Kevin Durant already requesting a trade once, there has been some talk of Kevin Durant returning to the Bay and running it back one more time with the Warriors. This is a trade that could completely shake the balance of power in the NBA and, more importantly, destroy NBA Twitter. So let's take a look at and discuss the possibility of Kevin Durant returning to the Golden State Warriors. To start off, it is important to know that Golden State can still be incredibly efficient for about one of their lineups. Their lineup of Curry, Klay, Wiggins, Green, and Looney is still one of, if not the best 5-man rotations in the entire NBA. With all of the Warriors' issues, starting talent is not one. However, a big thing has come with Jordan Poole, as he has not been able to carry the bench in the same way as he was expected. Even Draymond Green says that is because Poole is coming in and basically playing like Curry. While having 2 Steph Currys may sound nice, in reality it can take away from the Warriors' versatility, and it makes it easier to guard Poole when he plays like Curry.
Used to be a kind of a different offense, if you will. It's more like the same, and I think we have to figure that out in that second unit and understand that, you know, what you're accustomed to is Steph go out the game and the whole offense changes and it's more sets and this. But with Jordan, it's still going to be more of the same as you get with Steph, and I think guys have to really adjust to that, and it's taking some time to adjust to that.
And I'll get into it a bit more later, but their bench has been downright awful. But that isn't the only major issue. At the time I make this, they're currently a top 10 offensive team, but they have a bottom 5 defense this year. Last season, they were the number 1 defense in the entire league. They did lose some veterans over the offseason, which I think may be the biggest issue for Golden State, but nobody expected the struggle that they are going through right now. So with this sort of a struggle and the apparent openness of Kevin Durant, naturally the thought of Durant returning is getting talked about more. So let's take a look at to see what Golden State would even have to do to get Durant and what a trade for that would even look like. Now, Durant is obviously under a massive contract through the 2026 season, and even though Jordan Poole signed a max rookie extension, that won't be kicking in until next season, meaning he is still on a rookie salary at the moment. So to trade for KD, to match salaries, the Warriors would have to trade Klay, Wiggins, or Green. Now, watching Draymond get traded for Durant of all people would be pretty ironic, and Klay Thompson is playing so poorly to where on paper I would see why you would want to get rid of him, but that is on paper. I don't really see the reality of the Warriors trading either of their longtime stars, even if their contracts are soon expiring. Meanwhile, Wiggins is a younger, healthier player who still has a bit of upside for Brooklyn. Then outside of Wiggins' contract, the Warriors would still have to throw in one more rotational player just to make the finances work. But a realistic trade package would probably include a first rounder and some actual sort of young prospect in return. In reality, for Kevin Durant, the Warriors would probably have to give up Jordan Poole, and I could also see them having to part ways with Wiseman or Kuminga as well. Even though none of their trade values are that high, I feel like Poole has to be included as he is the only prospect with a serious upside. I could see Brooklyn wanting Wiseman as well, but they kind of have a history with disappointing #1 overall picks. An example trade might look like the Warriors giving up the 2023 and maybe the 2026 first round pick, Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, and James Wiseman to bring in Kevin Durant. And if I'm Brooklyn, I definitely like this deal. Get some draft picks, a solid player who can be traded away later in Andrew Wiggins, a young player who you could generally build a team around in Jordan Poole, and if Wiseman busts, he's a bust, but if he comes back, the Nets get credit for saving his career. But let's really talk about what this means for Golden State. I don't think it has to be said, but obviously the Warriors need to win now. We are only going to get so many prime years of Steph Curry left, and with the amount of money they are paying him, and with the rest of the Warriors core aging, it serves no benefit to try and retool things for a few seasons from now. So Durant comes back, and immediately we're going to see an even bigger boost to the Warriors offense. He's obviously better than Andrew Wiggins in just about every way, and he commands gravity that will help Curry and possibly even Klay Thompson get open. Not to mention his individual shot creation and scoring gives the Warriors offense another layer, something they certainly could use. Defensively, Durant has fallen off from his prime in Golden State. Part of that I think is just from his age, and part of that might just be because of the situation in Brooklyn. I don't think trading for Kevin Durant is going to save the Warriors defense, but I could see him being an effective defender, especially if he returns to his down low rim protector role. But given how much Klay and Draymond have fallen off since Durant was last in the Bay, this isn't the Golden State of the past with two elite defenders. Adding in Kevin Durant is going to be adding in Kevin Durant. You're once again putting two top 8 players on the same NBA team, giving the entire league flashbacks of the most unstoppable era in basketball history. Adding in a dynamic scorer like Durant is going to make things easier for everyone. And I hate to say it, but Steph Curry may not be able to continue with this superhuman season, either through injury or through defenses finally closing in on him. Steph Curry's individual heroics will not be able to carry out for the entire season. Even if they do, they may not translate to wins with the rest of the team not living up to his standard. But does bringing in Kevin Durant even make the Warriors a better team? We all know that Golden State is one of the most top-heavy teams in the entire NBA, and making their starting lineup even better while taking away from their bench isn't ideal. Golden State's bench has been a huge cause of all of their issues. They actually have the worst bench in the league right now. At the time I make this, they have a net rating of -7.9. The next worst is the San Antonio Spurs with a negative net rating of 6.3. For reference, last season, the Warriors had the second best bench in the league with a net rating of 2.6. So that is almost a 10-point drop-off in just over a season. Now this isn't a surprise as you look at everyone Golden State lost over the offseason. While they may not be stars, players like Gary Payton II, Damian Lee, and Otto Porter Jr. are all solid NBA veterans who knew the league and the intricacies of the Warriors offense. On average, the Warriors were 27 years old last season, which is now dropped to 25 years old this season. That is a huge average age drop-off, especially for a championship contender. Now, Kevin Durant would obviously add to the experience and overall skill of this team, but bringing him in would decimate their bench, making it even less NBA ready than what it is now. Now, one idea that I have also thought about that is if you're going to trade this much of your bench, you may want to bring in someone else along with KD, and I'm kind of thinking Seth Curry. Seth is not playing a major role in Brooklyn at the moment, but he has shown the capability to be a solid scorer off the bench. He's an NBA veteran who I'm sure would fit along with the rest of Golden State. He is an elite three-point shooter who could help Golden State as their bench is still in the bottom half of the league when it comes to shooting. His contract isn't too bad, and, you know, he kind of knows the Steph Curry guy. Now, in reality, I don't think them trading for Seth is realistic, but it's kind of fun to talk about, and I think it's a better idea than just bringing in Kevin Durant alone. But is bringing in Kevin Durant even realistic? Durant has already requested a trade from Brooklyn once. Brooklyn had the opportunity to trade him over the offseason and was unable to do so, or at least unable to find a deal that they feel like Durant is worth. And while the Nets haven't played like it, at the moment they are still a team that are trying to compete. That may change by the end of the season or even by the trade deadline, but Brooklyn themselves haven't really started anything, making us think that they're going to blow it all up yet. For Golden State, I don't really see how this trade can be worth it. And maybe it isn't even realistic. Maybe this whole video is just barbershop talk. But Golden State would be jeopardizing their post-Curry future as well as their current bench by trying to bring in Durant. The small benefit of seeing an even better starting lineup would be quickly drowned out by what would probably be a historically bad NBA bench. With that being said though, Golden State still does need to figure things out. While the NBA is a star-driven league and the playoffs may see lineups tighten up a bit, it will be next to impossible to try and repeat as champions with the worst bench in the league. If I'm Golden State, my #1 goal over the next few months would be try to keep the harmony with the starters and acquire whatever you can on the bench. That may include trading some of their future players for some win-now assets, but I don't see Kevin Durant as being one of the ones that Golden State should target. I do believe that we are going to see a Kevin Durant trade. I don't see it going towards the Warriors, but with Durant having a clear disconnect from the rest of the Nets roster, and with this era of Brooklyn basketball being nearly confirmed to be a disappointment, I expect that we are going to see Durant gone. It is still very early in the year, and maybe possibly things can change for Brooklyn, but come trade deadline, if Brooklyn hasn't figured things out, which many don't believe that they're going to, then I expect Kevin Durant is going to be one of the biggest stars talked about at the NBA trade deadline.